Did anyone have anything else they wanted to weigh in before we move on to a different quote?
I have one more little idea, and that is the seed principle of stones and the cave that holds a dead body. And it's tied to the idea of Aaron's rod, reblooming, budding with growth, and the fact that you're rolling away stones to open space. And that's what I think happens to when, let me see, it's like you can get it all figured out in your head and you think you've got it. And then you realize it's dead. Yeah. Right? And then you knock something off so that there's space for newness, maybe.
It's kind of a picture of reframing, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is reframing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the skull cracked open, which makes me laugh, isn't it? The egg cracked open and then it's empty.
Well, you can laugh at that because you have had your egg cracked open.
Yes, I have. And several of you do it to me periodically.
Noah, do you have something for us? No? Okay. Feel free to stop me at any point. Speaking of Aaron's almond rod, what Jill said, if you are talking, Noah, I did not hear anything. I just saw it flash green for a second and then silence. Okay. The quote about almond's rod, or Aaron's rod of almond blossoms, really stuck out to me. That was the next quote I had pulled out, which is, "I learned too late, having crossed it, that the threshold was as rich in world openings as Aaron's rod." And I thought that was absolutely a gorgeous picture. I can just see, it reminds me of Jonathan Peugeot's masterclass that he did. And I think he posted this video on the open internet, but it was like a central axis with wheels coming off, rather like stacked like a Christmas tree, and each one coming out in spokes of their own axis and wheel. And I can just see that now as Aaron's rod. And of course, Aaron's rod has both flowers and almonds, right? And welcome, Ron. We're in the midst of a book club discussion called Dreamtime. Good to see your face. So, almonds are also called Mandorlas. Hi, Jill. Good to see you. And a Mandorla is, in iconography, the symbol. It's almond shape, and I believe Mandorla means almond. I forget what language, maybe Greek. But it represents the place where heaven and earth intersect, right? So it's two circles, like a Venn diagram, and the part where they overlap is almond shaped, eye shaped. It's a way of seeing things where both heaven and earth are existing simultaneously. And that almond is also a portal. So it can be the portal between worlds, it can be the portal of being born, literally, like a birth canal. And it is also the mandorla of Christ's wound in his side. is always made like this Mandorla shape in iconography. So all those ideas are right lined up together. And those are exactly the themes that the next 3 chapters explore. So the idea that Aaron's rod is like a central axis around which many worlds are oriented was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did.
Man, I love Mandorlas.
Right?
It's so deep, and something I did try to start on the reading today, and I came across one thing that sent me off on a large tangent that you just connected like all of it for me. I'm trying to figure out what it was that sent me there, but we'll get into it at some point.
I know how you feel. I feel like every time I open this book, you have to be careful. You'll step through one of those almond openings and end up in a world you haven't discovered yet. And it just goes on and on and on. So I'm going to keep reading through my highlighted quotes unless anyone has anything also they really want to address. Yes, this book does need a caution sign. So my next quote that I had pulled out was, "Like a mind asleep, the world sprouted adventures. The knights would not sit down to dinner unless a great adventure had been achieved." So I pulled this one out because just like our first quote turned out to be kind of a framework, a starting point for many of these chapters, this seems to be another step that is represented to us multiple times, almost every chapter, I would say, because this book is called The Dreamtime. But there's a moment where we must enter the dream. So the way he phrased how the knights are getting ready for their adventures, who who would think of it that way? I love that. I want to take a moment to appreciate that artistry because when I think of, okay, let me tell you a story, it's going to involve some knights, or they're about to go on an adventure. I usually start with, maybe the sun is rising. We're all awake. There's a certain kind of energy that you are looking for, but this starts one step back from that awakeness to the story, and it's entering the dream. So, like a mind asleep to the world, sprouted adventures. So the sprouting of adventures calls back Aaron's rod with all its multiple worlds in it, and then um, the mind asleep to adventures. Those adventures are these multiplicity of dreams that could unfold, and we're going to explore one of them. So um, I think that image is a useful one. We could compare that to another line from the next chapter, which is the stone boat, or the boat of stone, whichever that it is, where he says, "I survived it only because I came to know that it is only when we consent to be dreamed by something that we can cross into the dream time." So again, this through line is kind of part of the map that he lays out for us to take us where he wants to take us. So I'm just trying to call attention to that because this book can be very disorienting. So I want to start giving us a couple of handrails. First is the question: have we taken things for granted? What frame are we in? Have we put things in the category of um, dead material assumptions about how things are supposed to work? And once we see that question as a frame, the next one is, let's go through this dream portal and explore this idea a little bit more. So that seems to be how this map lays out for us. Let me catch up on some of the chat here. Yeah, what does it mean to allow yourself to be dreamed? I have no idea. I do like the idea, though, that he sort of sits down on a rock at one point and allows it to dream of him. I'm going to stop talking and let you guys kind of mull over the idea. What does it mean to be dreamed by something?
I have one experience where I felt like I was actually in someone else's dream, and it was in church.
Wow.
It was an Orthodox service, a divine worship service, and it was very disorienting. And we arrived early, and it was as if they were preparing the place for worship. And of course, there's all kinds of motion. And it fit my idea of what being in God would be. All of this activity of light and movement. And it wasn't chaotic. It was all set and ordered and beautiful. All of the senses engaged. But I felt like I was in someone else's dream. Now, I don't know if that's lack of control. That could describe dream-like quality, couldn't it?
Yeah. Interesting. I can't help but think about my mom has this condition where she faints randomly, which is dangerous. And she's had it happen to her enough times where she's learned what the sort of like the signs that a spell is coming on. And it's if she starts thinking to herself, am I dreaming? Or has this happened before? And there's like this brief moment where she has the chance to sit down. And she's learned to take that chance. If she starts wondering, gosh, is this sort of like a dream? Did I dream this? Am I dreaming right now? She has to sit down. Now I don't know what that means in terms of mysticism, but in terms of safety, it's a good idea to sit down when that happens. But when I think about what does it mean to be dreamed, I think it might have to do with the idea that we are participating in this uh, cosmic story, and we are characters in it. I want to say that it's like if you are actually seeing the world, the material world, as not dead matter, but meaningful matter. I guess, truly living in that Mandorla where heaven and earth are united. If you're living in that, then you are being dreamed because you're like a matter yourself that is hosting spirit. So I find Mathieu Peugeot's framework to be helpful when navigating this book. But I don't know. Does anyone else have any insights on what it means to be dreamed?
This makes me think a little bit about just Christ in the desert. So one of the things that I was reading in Mathieu Peugeot's tweets was that Moses is actually in a very difficult position whenever he's out in the desert, and he's got this rod and the rock, which is Christ, and you can ask the rock for water, or you can strike the rock for water. And so he says something like the first step of asking is already difficult. And then the second part of it, which is actually being patient, is the most difficult part. But most people can't even do the first part. and so we can't ask. And so like the rock is Christ, the rock is the foreign principle. You don't have to be necessarily stumbled by it, but you do have to wait. You do have to rest on that rock, and you dream on top of that rock, like the patriarchs do. They sleep on rocks.
Yeah. That's it.
And then
Wonderful. Like that through line connects with the next couple of chapters because we talk about pillows and Jacob resting his head on a pillow, and that's where he dreams the dream of Jacob's ladder. So that's right on.
yeah, and I think that hosting angels too thing, that like I think that's also related to Abraham whenever he sleeps under the trees of Mamre. I think if I remember correctly, like that's associated with memory. And so the tree is the pattern, and he's resting there, and he's kind of gathering the land around him so that he can host the angels and present them food. And so then he receives the seed. Well, my kind of a speculation, but just kind of you're waiting for the seeds of the tree of Mamre to descend, and then you have the promise of a son from all that preparation of waiting for the seed to descend.
Yes, my mind went in two different places, but that is very similar to the idea of the salmon swimming into the pool underneath the hazel tree and eating the seeds that come down from there. Our what is it? Our next chapter or the third one, perhaps? No, it's the next chapter. It's the stone boat. I'll just go ahead and jump to that. Uh, I stood a while by the river, he said. A salmon leaped. Out through my mirrored heart he leaped, falling back, splashing. Sorry, I got a phone call. I'm gonna have to hang up, guys. I'll be back in just a moment.
This is great. Now Anna can't keep me from derailing the conversation.
Go for it. We'll slap you when we need to, huh?
Oh dear.
No,
Oh dear,
I won't.
dear
I will never hurt you. I promise. So what were you going to derail us with?
I can't help it. I got like one page into this Dolorous stroke, and something sent me off on a tangent, and my mind is exploding. I think it can link in. It definitely links in with the Mandorlas. So I think this can be is not too off topic. Shut me down whenever you guys need me to. So, okay, there's a couple mentions of Pentecost here. And a light of the highest heaven, Pentecostally plenteous, entered the hall, transfiguring them. So I started thinking about what Pentecost means. And I remembered something that, like it has always helped me to look at other stories to see, there are other stories that are the same but different, they're variations on the theme, and that helps me understand a story. So I found out recently Nathan Jacobs said that the same calendar day where Pentecost occurs is also the day that the Tower of Babel fell. It's also the day of Passover. It's also the day of when the new covenant was given to Noah and of Abraham and of Moses. So what does that mean?
Like a spirit of unification.
There are two inverse patterns here, right? There's the Tower of Babel, and then there's Noah, that are kind of the inverse opposites of each other. this led me. I'm really setting a broad foundation here. That'll take a lot to tie all back together, but it might be worth it. So I started exploring the story of Rahab. This got me onto thinking about Rahab, and that's a really difficult one to understand. But so Jericho. Oh no. And I took the opportunity to take them off on a huge tangent. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. Thank you.
It's related to Mandorlas, so maybe you'll see the connection. So I was saying that Nathan Jacobs pointed out that Passover takes place on the same calendar year, or you might say astrological day of the year, as the new covenant given to Noah, Abraham, Moses. It's also the same day as Pentecost, and that the Tower of Babel fell. So,
Well, Passover and Pentecost are not the same. Those are 2 different days.
they're 2 different days. Okay, I'll have to look more carefully at what Nathan Jacobs said. I may have.
I mean, they are directly connected. Pentecost is the 5th week after Passover, so it's like the 50th day, 49.
Okay.
49 days.
Maybe it's the same period or something. He might not have said day.
Right. They are linked.
Okay.
And there are tons of these through lines between many of these kinds of events that are not necessarily explicitly stated, but yeah, they are. There is a kind of kairos in the Passover.
Okay, so I was trying to figure out how the Tower of Babel is related to Passover, and I saw that these are tied by looking at the story of Rahab.
Mm.
And so Jericho is inhabited by the Canaanites, which engage in child sacrifice. They serve themselves at the expense of others. They are widely known for prostitution as well.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who pretends to love you, but they will actually accept anyone, right? They pretend that they see your virtue, but they don't have standards. They will pretend anyone has virtue.
Right.
So, so on the border of a civilization like Jericho or Babylon, about the Tower of Babel is a sort of an Ouroboros. It's a devouring serpent that sort of rules from the outside. Like it dominates, like the principle of that which just wants to devour everything is actually the king of that city. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and part of its characteristic, like by definition, it accepts everything. So, it's sort of growing by taking from others, right? It's like the Empire of Rome. There's nothing that it sees that it doesn't want to make part of its body.
Right.
So you're in a trap when that's your characteristic. There's a problem with that, is that, it's like, I'm tying so many things here. I'm sorry, but
Go for it.
it's also like, say, the American Empire. It says that we call the shots around the world, and as soon as there's one case where we can't call it, we can't get what we want, then we're not really the rulers of the world. So if someone is willing to sort of make a sacrifice, and like they're willing to they'll choose a hill to die on, and they're willing to not give them what they want, then it sort of proves that they can't rule. So it's like they rule by fear, fear of death. So if you're not afraid of death, then they don't rule you, and then you're exposed as not being the true ruler of the world. Okay, so it's like saying I'm the toughest guy in town. Now you're forced to take on all comers, and if someone is coming straight at you, like the chosen the Israelites coming straight at Jericho, you have no choice but to take them on. You either run and hide and say, okay, I'm not really the toughest guy in town, or you take on the fight. But if they're coming straight at you, you're probably going to lose. You know what I mean? It's like, why are they not afraid of me? These guys aren't afraid of me. This has never happened. This isn't going to end well, right? And but you still have to take the fight, or you cede the territory, right? You have to flee the city and be like, I guess this is your territory. You're the true. Your principle is stronger than mine. So, so Rahab is a symbol of this sort of permeability, that this double-edged sword. Like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So, Rahab is like, yeah, we devour everything, including the meal that we can't digest, that actually digests us. And that's the fate of every sort of fake principality that pretends that it has the moral right to rule or something like that, is that eventually it gets exposed. Either it gets converted or it just dies.
I know you started this conversation or this idea with Pentecost and Babel as the comparisons. And I know, like, Passover was mentioned. Passover is the time of Christ dying. It's the part of the resurrection. And then Pentecost is like, is it 50 days later? Or Anna, I know you were going to clarify, and I probably need clarification.
No, you're right on. 50 days.
Is it 50 days? And so I know that in our story that we're reading, in the King Arthur section, it points to the death of Christ and the Holy Grail. And I don't know if that's where you were going next.
There is a reference to Pentecost in our chapter. I actually had it pulled out as one of our quotes.
That is where I started with this.
Okay. That's funny. That's funny. Well, just to get everyone on the same page, let me read that quote, and then I'll hand the mic back over to you, Kevin, and see how you wrap this narrative around it.
Yeah, I can wrap it up pretty quick after that. Go ahead.
Okay. Hardly were they seated at the table when they heard a cracking and crying of thunder, and a light from the highest heaven, Pentecostally plenteous, entered the hall, transfiguring them. As though the last trump had sounded, it also dumbfounded them. And then a marvel of marvels, a great glorious thing, its glory veiled, entered the hall, filling it with heavenly odors, and passing among them, it gave its bounty to each knight, and the food and drink that he liked best. Take it away.
Oh man, yeah, that brings so much. So the last trumpet for the Walls of Jericho, they surrounded the city and did a rotation, an orbit once every day. I don't know what the word is. They went around the city once per day for 6 days, and then they called attention to the Ark of the Covenant, and then on the seventh day they did 7 more laps, and then the walls came down. So I think there's something about you know, okay, so many things. Rahab puts a red rope around her window to set herself apart, so that she's passed over by the Israelites. But basically, they're able to make her like a Mandorla. They're able to enter through her, enter the city, and bring heaven to earth. I don't quite have the 6 and 7, but they're turning 6 into 7 there, basically, right? They're turning fake completion into real completion, or something like that.
Yeah, I see that.
So this is, I'll wrap it up here, but this I think this is what this passage that you just read, Anna, is talking about, is like they're transfigured. The light enters in and transfigures them, and as if the last trumpet had sounded. And yeah, I don't know. I'll leave it there.
There's so many different threads we could pick up on for that and weave them all beautifully into this chapter. So we're going to have to, pick at some point. And I think one thing I want to maybe bring our attention to is there's so many. Okay, let's do the 6 and the 7, and how on the 7th day they do another 7 laps, right? So the 7th becomes its own 7, and that's another example of how 7 is fractal, bringing forth itself. It reminds me of in Revelation, the book, there are 7 bowls and 7 trumpets and 7 horns and 7 eyes, and it's always like you're following along, and then on the 7th one, what it actually does is it lets out another thing that comes in 7, and then that 7 comes out, and its 7th thing lets out another series of 7s. So, of course, from a Matthew point of view, the 6 is the earthly. You can count it, the man, the number of man, right? And the 7th is all the things that you limited men cannot keep count of. So it is the heavenly number, but that only God can contain. And this bringing the reason I want to, we had so many options of what thread are we going to follow. The reason I want to bring up the idea of microcosm and macrocosm, the idea that the 7 brings forth another 7, it's a world bringing forth another world, is because this is a theme that happens within our next 3 chapters that we're looking at, where it seems like a wound is healed, a sword is drawn out of a stone, but the result of that is that we find another world and another microcosm or macrocosm, because who can tell if you're moving up and out and bigger, or in and deeper and closer to the core. Which end is closer to the core, I don't know. But there seems to be a representation and a representation and a representation of this wound, and the pulling of the sword from the wound or from the stone fixes. It's almost like it gives you a doorway, right? And that the wound, the Mandorla wound, is your doorway. You go through it, and in that world, there's another sword and stone. And we kind of follow that into narrative stories, and then we follow it out into his seeming actual life. We get these little snapshots of his sort of spiritual experiences in the concrete world, where he's encountering myth in his waking visions. So that's why I wanted to latch onto this idea of seven and the repeating microcosm macrocosm relationship. But the idea that through that Mandorla comes the breath of Pentecost, and that um, Pentecost is like it is a seven because it's uh, so many weeks, so many sets of seven away from Passover. Um, that's not a coincidence. So it's really the 49th day, but it's like the end of that period. So it really is the 6 and the 7 idea.
Oh
And
wow,
yeah,
49 is 7 times 7.
exactly. Um, so uh, that what happens on Pentecost is this big outburst, and he compares that to a last trump. But I would tell you, well, the last trump is not associated with Pentecost. That's associated with Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, which leads to Yom Kippur, which leads to Sukkot, and all of these are one set of 6 or 7 leading into the next 7, um, because uh, Rosh Hashanah is at the 7th, or Yom Kippur is at the 7th month of the year. And you have to think of it as, um, if you think of a year being 12 months, you're going to lose a lot of symbolism because it is 12 months. But the first month and the last month are um, the 1 and the 8, or the 1 and the 7. So um, the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. It's better to think of the year being divided into two sets of sevens, um, the hot side of the year and the cold side of the year, each one consisting of 7 months if you count the edges. Um, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I've talked about it in other places. Um, but what I'm trying to get at is that you have Passover, which is at the beginning of the year. This shall be a beginning of years to you. And then you have 7 sevens after that is Pentecost, which is this outpouring of breath. But that outpouring of breath is represented at Yom Kippur as the last trump, uh, because you have the day of blastings and then Judgment Day. And of course, that is the vision of the catacomb. That is the end of all time, right? But it's um, this uh, nested series of sevens that leads you there. So I don't know if that made a lot of sense. I would feel like I would make more sense if I had a whiteboard, but that's that is perfectly relevant to all the things we're talking about. So I am actually yes, get a whiteboard. I will work on that. I am actually nearing the end of my time to talk today. I hope you guys will continue to talk. Um, one thing I would love it if you guys did continue talking on is a quote from the very last line of this chapter. Oh, I know. I didn't know Discord had a whiteboard. I'll have to look into that. The line that I highlighted towards the end of this chapter says, "The Grail quest accomplished, our quest for this world, the world we were born into, will begin." So he's again presenting this idea that at the completion of this Grail quest, we have the quest in this world. And I believe that is when you finally realize that you live in the Mandorla, that you live in a material world that is saturated with meaning, that it's not the Medusa stare that has reduced material world to dead stone, but that the stones are living flesh animated by the spirit of the dream. So I am going to have to hop off for now. Remember, we're not meeting until January 8th, and we will read our next 3 chapters for that meeting. So thanks, everybody. And I hope to catch up on the chat afterwards. Hope it's a good conversation.
I just want to check with Noah. Is your mic not working, Noah? Or is
No,
it technical? It is working. Okay.
It wasn't working. It wasn't working at the time, but it's working.
Okay, thank you.
And
Um,
thanks for hosting.
Thanks, guys. I'll catch up with you later. Bye.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Hmm. So,
Wow.
Candace, are you also not able to talk today?
Well, I'm listening, but I'm just like doing a bunch of things, so it's noisy. I have a recital tonight, so I'm getting it ready for my students' recital.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's so worthwhile.
But I can chat for a minute. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything in this first chapter that spoke to you?
Not as much as the second one, but I honestly didn't spend as much time studying them. So, yeah. But I feel like, okay, if there was one thing I wanted to talk about, let me look. It's in the second chapter. Let me just look at my highlighted things. Okay, and in the Kindle, it's like on page 63, I think. It's on like part 3 of the second chapter. There's like 2 quotes. One is right at the beginning of the 3. It says, hold on, let me go. Coming towards me across it, it came, a spear as long and as black as a winter's night. It went through me. It opened a wound as big as a door in me, and I walked through it. And yeah. And then it keeps going. I walked through it into the same everyday world, but how different it all was, how strange it was. I thought that was interesting. You know, I thought maybe people have some good thoughts about that, like how a wound. He keeps talking about the wound. I don't know exactly what he means by the wound. But I feel like maybe I kind of know what that experience is, you know, like just like a wound opening you up to like just something you never realized or imagined before, you know. Yeah.
I'm still trying to find that quote.
Oh, it's in the second chapter on that 3rd section.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
It's right at the beginning.
I was standing on an outcrop.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to just put this in the chat. Okay. I'm just going to copy and paste and then we can all see it.
Okay. And then just like a couple little paragraphs after it, he talks about how there was a boatman on the boat and it said, yes, he would row me over. And then going down a little bit, it says the creaking of the oars in their toll.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't know how do you say that? In the toll holds?
I think it's just thole.
Thole, okay. In their thole holds was impermeable to mind. They weren't hospitable, even externally, to mind. There was no door in them through which mind might enter and find night lodgings. They wouldn't be roost to mind. They wouldn't collude with mind, not even to the extent of pretending that reality is possible, they wouldn't be an object to mind. On that wide water, flat and black, mind was on its own, having only its own hallucinations to lay its head on. I don't know why I highlighted that one, but I highlighted that one.
Mm-hmm. I liked that too. I highlighted the fact that, it just sparked something like, we do make our own hallucinations, and we do kind of build a concept on may not be reality, right? But the idea that his mind could not, these things would not host his rational thinking. Do you think that's what it is?
Is that what he means by
Instead,
mind?
I don't know. See if Tommy is Tommy trembling with anticipation of speaking? Because this sounds like imagination to me. Oh, look. I don't see Tommy.
Yeah,
Tommy's not here. He left. Oh, well. So I do want to go back to the sword that the spear that's wounding you, and it is something. It's not a flesh wound. It's transformative.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember reading a book called The Wounded Healer.
Oh, I
and it's by Henry Nouwen.
Mm-hmm.
And it does give you another perspective to the suffering that we all encounter suffering. And I think we're always trying to mitigate that suffering. We're trying to eliminate it, transform it into something that we can handle. But it might actually be the door. Isn't that what that quote, I wrote it, isn't that what that quote means?
I think so. Well, it reminds me that I just remembered in our trickster book about the crocodile man. Do you remember that?
I vaguely. So tell me more.
Okay, so he was like, I don't know what culture they were talking about, but some kind of tribal culture. They'd send out someone and he would be like whipped and wounded, until his skin turned like crocodile scars, because he was going to be the healer, but he had to like undergo the pain and the suffering so that then he could come back to the village and like be the healer and understand people.
Absolutely. I did remember that story. I don't think I really understood it very deeply. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
It just barely came into my mind.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Hebrews 4:15 through 16, for we have not a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then, with confidence, draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in a time of need.
I just kind of like did a chat GPT search on the last section in this chapter, the section 5, because it's just like one paragraph, basically. And it was interesting. Like it had a lot of interesting. I could like put it in the chat if you want. But like I feel like it had a lot of Yeah, I will. I'll copy this and put it in.
Before we go on any further, did anyone want to loop back to any of the topics we kind of passed over? I haven't heard. I haven't heard Filch scat and Noah. A little bit of Kevin I have. So anything you guys want to talk about?
Nothing that I can talk over voice chat. I have to. I'll probably be lurking and listening, but I can't talk right now.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know, honey.
Oh.
I wondered. Oh, what were you going to say, Candace? Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't have anything.
I was going to say, Kevin, when you talked about all of the ideas that had been kind of coming alive to you because of the first chapter we read, that first idea. You had a lot of scattered ideas. Did any of it settle into place? Did you feel like?
Yeah, in my mind, it all came together. I guess I didn't. It's hard to.
It's harder when you're listening to know what you're referring to all the time. You know, I mean, as a listener, maybe my brain is just slow. But yeah, I was glad Anna could bring it all back together.
Yeah.
Well, hope we can use the whiteboard. Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
play with that.
Okay, so there's a bunch of things in the chat.
I just posted it.
Yes, you did.
That was all ChatGPT, okay?
Oh, okay.
But I felt like it brought things together, like that last part of the chapter. You know, we could read through it, or...
Do you want to read it?
Sure, I can read it. I'll read the last part of the chapter because it's just like a paragraph, and then I can read through this and we can discuss it.
Okay.
Okay. Part 5. Across the waters from Erin comes a boat song, a Dreamtime boat song. The sword has been drawn from the stone. Our Medusa Mulan is Mulan Comsile. Hearing it, Renee says the erratic is Norm. Hearing it, Sir Isaac says the stone the builders of Europe rejected is paradigm. Hearing it, Matthew says Ulro is Uluru. Hearing it, Michelangelo's captives walk free. So I felt I just knew there was a lot in there that I wasn't picking up on. So, okay. So it says that across the waters from Erin comes a boat song, a Dreamtime boat song. It says Erin refers to the Aran Islands off of Ireland, a place Moriarty treats as a spiritual edge zone of Europe. A boat song evokes ancient oral transmission, pilgrimage, and crossing between worlds. Calling it Dreamtime links Irish myth to the Aboriginal Australian cosmology, which is primordial, prehistorical meaning that underlies history rather than sitting inside it. So the implication is that this song comes from before modern categories, before nation, discipline, or doctrine. And then when he says the sword has been drawn from the stone, that's an Arthurian image, obviously. Rightful sovereignty revealed not by force, but by alignment with destiny. And I'm going to skip over that because I think it's the sword drawing from the stone that's more obvious. Okay, our Medusa Mulan is Mulan cum Sile. So Medusa, the petrifying power of vision, to see her directly is dangerous. Mulan is Irish for a small hill or a mound, also suggests sacred landscape. Cum Sile, Saint Columbia, is an Irish saint, culture bringer, missionary, and poet. And so Moriarty fuses terror and sanctity, pagan and Christian, saying they are the same archetypal force seen under different cultural lenses. What petrifies, like Medusa, and what sanctifies, like Columba, are not opposites. That was interesting. And then all the people who hearing it, you know, Rene Descartes says the erratic is norm. So erratic refers to glacial erratics, boulders transported far from their origin. Modern science once treated these as anomalies. Later, geology realized they were key evidence of ice ages. So the meaning is what looks like disorder or exception is often the real rule. This is a rebuke to rationalism's obsession with tidy systems. Anybody want to jump in yet, or should I just finish?
Both. Go ahead.
Okay. Hearing it, Sir Isaac says, the stone the builders of Europe rejected is paradigm. So, Sir Isaac Newton, emblem of classical physics and Enlightenment order. He is echoing Psalm 118, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. So the rejected stone equals myth, symbol, imagination, indigenous knowledge. Moriarty claims this rejected material is not decorative, it is the paradigm itself. And then hearing it, Matthew says, Ulro is Uluru. Okay, so Matthew is William Blake's prophetic voice. So Ulro is a term that Blake came up with to talk about the dead mechanistic world of materialism and spiritual exile. But Uluru is a big mountain in Australia. So it's like a sacred monolith, yeah. Moriarty collapses the opposition. What Europe experiences as spiritual desolation is at a deeper level sacred ground, if seen rightly. The problem is not the world, it is the mode of perception. And then hearing it, Michelangelo's captives walk free, referring to Michelangelo's unfinished prisoners/captives, figures trapped in marble. Michelangelo believed sculpture was already inside the stone. The artist releases it. So the symbol is human spirit, imagination, and culture have been trapped inside rigid forms, doctrines, systems, and rationalisms. The Dreamtime song frees them. And lastly, ChatGPT. Yeah, that's the picture of the Uluru. The core meaning, Moriarty is saying, what modern Europe treated as marginal, irrational, primitive, or unfinished is actually foundational. When myth, art, science, and spirituality are reheard from their common source, the fragments reunite and what was trapped comes alive. Or more bluntly, myth is not pre-truth, it is deep truth. Anomaly is not error, it is revelation. The sacred was not lost, it was misseen. And liberation comes through recognition, not invention. That was helpful for me.
A lot there, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ready to jump in, but go ahead if someone has something.
I just found it really wonderful to have this dealing with time as something that is not, so there is a tendency in my mind to think eternal is before, but it isn't. It is a quality of being. And so when it says pre-truth, it does give you a sense of time. And instead, it's deep truth. So when you think of the Aboriginal understanding, it isn't like it's a better quality of thinking. I don't know if that means anything to anyone else, but yeah, it was good for me. Anyway, Kevin, what were you going to say?
So very interesting what he said about Ireland. With what I know about Ireland, there was a time period when all the ancient Greek thought was basically lost, and civilization was in desolation in a way, and I want to bring a quote here. Here, let me put this quote. Let me see what it says. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let those who are inside the city depart. Let not those who are out in the country enter it. So, at some point, there are these patterns where the holy city becomes corrupt. It's ruled by the Pharisees. It's hollow and empty, and it's inviting its own destruction. It's become morally unfit to exist, and that's the time when you should loot the Egyptians and take refuge in the mountains. So this is what St. Patrick did. St. Patrick was in Rome, and he was a slave under the Roman Empire, and he escaped, and he went to Ireland, this sort of peripheral. He I don't know. I haven't thought this through, but perhaps he's like a green man on the periphery, like John the Baptist, like Mary, like yeah. I won't dare with further examples that I could be wrong with, but somebody who held on to, I think this is our current situation as well. Is we live in Babylon, and we need to preserve the ark of the covenant and flee with it, and we need to. This is also what happened in the United States when some of the founding fathers were for slavery and some of them were extremely opposed to it. And there was a period where the power center in Virginia sort of won the day. They got their 3/5 compromise and all this stuff, and some laws were established that you could, I don't know, capture escaped slaves, and they'd have to be sent back and that kind of thing. And the people who were against a slaveocracy, an agrarian slaveocracy, they sort of they went to the mountains. They actually were in Manhattan, and I don't know if there's mountains there, but it's a place where they could defend and like rally. They could rally up around these principles, and they're like, well, let's just express these principles where we can, since it's not safe, in the power center. We'll express these here and sort of build up the potential for when the time is right, the kairos is right. So they did this project that was around the Erie Canal, I think it's called, and it was just like an expression of like, we're going to use creativity to free the slaves. We're going to build technology and infrastructure and things like that to replace, like we're going to use tractors to replace. One tractor can produce as much food as 25 or 50 slaves. I can't remember. So we're just going to set up this this system here and show that it works better, and then build out from there. So what St. Patrick did was he escaped, and he went to Ireland, which was considered a place of strange, mystical, dangerous creatures like fairies or something like that. That's like, it's full of crazy people and spirits that we don't understand, that are dangerous to us. So we're not going to bother to conquer it. And it was the only place where some of these texts survived, and all the other libraries were burned down. One of the burnings of the Library of Alexandria was during this period. And these ancient Greek texts, like in my mind, the prefigures of Christian philosophy, like Socrates and Solon and Aeschylus, they were preserved there. And also, he very much was, I don't know the state of Christianity in Europe at that moment, but I think it was on the ropes. And he set up a monastery there. It was the first place. He was the first public figure to call for an end to slavery, or to denounce slavery in human history. And his monastery was a place where women were included as well. They could come and study. Everybody had to pull their weight with the work that needed done, the farming and stuff. But he taught the Bible primarily, and the ancient Greeks, and Plato and so on, Plato's Republic, and people would hand copy the Bible, and each person would make their own book. Like a famous one is the Book of Kells. They would make a copy of what stood out to them, or sort of write down the things that were dear to them, and there were, I think, some people were just transcribing the Bible word for word. I'm not sure. But what happened was people, including Columba, like 2 generations later, Columba, who was mentioned, many people wound up going on becoming, like apostolic, doing apostolic missions to Europe, and would go and sort of do the same, set up the same system as what St. Patrick did in Europe. So they went to like all the major cities of Europe and sort of set up a place where civilization could sort of be reborn again, in spite of the decadence of Europe at that time. This is like, I don't know, 500 or something like that, the year 500 or so. And these were the places where it sort of all emanated from and became a major influence again was through these missions that all came from what St. Patrick established, and it was only thanks to these imperial forces not thinking Ireland was worth conquering.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that fills out a bit of what he's referring to there. Ireland, or maybe I'm off. But I think so. What else? So, in a way, St. Patrick was the, or what Patrick represented, Christian thought, and in a way, the Greek thought, which I think is part of the same tradition, was the stone that the builders rejected, but later became the centerpiece. I was also thinking about the Tower of Babel. If they're building up and up, but if it had a keystone, if Christ was the keystone, then it would have stability instead of sort of collapsing under its own weight.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on understanding the cornerstone and the aiming at building something for Christ rather than something for yourself. And I know that, well, I just remember that Jonathan showed the comparison of building a name for yourself and building on the foundation of Christ and the possibilities. I mean, the underlying problems seem to be very internal, where corruption creeps in as an internal thing, like specific ethical choices that you're making. And maybe that's why these books are so appealing, because they are challenging your materialism, the ideas that you have, that I have embraced. I think that's a bad habit of saying you when I mean me.
We all do it. Yeah.
Anyway, trying to make it a personal choice of ethical behavior and not making a name for yourself almost seems like you would have to be so aware of who you are and where you're likely to do this.
Mm-hmm. This
Yeah.
week, I've been studying a little about, psychosis, guys.
Oh, yeah. Good idea. Huh?
Because
Oh,
I
goodness.
just had an episode. And so I there's been some interesting things that I've learned about. Well, do you guys know who Ian McIllchrist is? Ian McIllchrist. He's sometimes on these podcast circuits that we were on.
Yeah, I've read his books.
Oh, have you? Okay,
Yeah.
I just got the master and his emissary. So, okay, then this will make sense. But yeah, he talks about, I feel like, so that's where my mind goes just reading this week. Like, because he talks about left brain versus right brain. The right brain is the true master, and the left brain is supposed to be the emissary. But when the left brain, which is characterized by like seeing like a detail, it'll zoom in on a detail. It can be really rational about details, but like it can't see the whole picture the way that the right brain can see the whole picture. And so that's why the right brain is the master, because it can see the greater context. Anyway, but when the rationality, the rational mind takes over, you get psychosis. So there were some quotes where it was like, psychosis isn't like irrationality, it's actually like too much rationality, which I thought was so interesting. And
isn't it? I have been wondering about this very thing. Thank you for talking about it. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, because like talking to my son after his experience, well, what happened was like he went into like this manic phase after taking a steroid, prescribed for like he had a surgery, and then he had like a really sore throat from the intubation. But so they prescribed him a steroid to get the throat healed. But so he went into a manic phase. It was like I'd never really seen this or recognized this in him. And so like it seemed kind of weird, and it came on gradually, and like every day it was a little worse, but it just kept getting worse and worse and worse every day until he was just like, it was just nuts. And his friends were calling us, and like, but after talking to him, he's like, in my mind, like everything I was doing was like so rational. It was like so obviously the obvious thing you would do, and it just all made sense to him. It made perfect sense. And he when he first started coming out of it, they like got him on an antipsychotic drug, and like they put him on lithium, because they realized he had bipolar, because of how he reacted so severely to the steroid. And anyway, so when he started coming down, he's like, I can remember everything. And like, it still seemed rational to him, for like a couple weeks. Like, he's like, he couldn't see the problem with like what had taken place, but he was just being nuts. He was just like, just like super rude and belligerent, and just like calling everybody a dumbass, and like, just doing weird things, posting weird things on his TikTok account and stuff. Yeah, so in his mind, he was being so rational. So I think we're in this world. Well, this is what Ian McIllchrist talks about too. I think it's like our world right now is kind of hyper rational, and so it's kind of scary if we don't bring in this like the right brain. And I think that right brain is kind of like Moriarty's things he's talking about, like the imaginal and stuff.
I think you're right. I think we have divorced ourselves from reality by becoming so rational.
Yeah.
And it's like fact oriented.
Yeah.
And if you want, you can prove anything with facts.
Yeah.
Data is not the whole truth. It's just data, right? Or data, however you say that word. Sorry, guys.
Either.
Oh, good. I'm in. So it's so important to try to, like, I lean toward irrationality, in the best sense of the word. I am more flighty in my ideas, and I'm open to imagination. And so I tend to try to kind of quell that imagination. I try to keep it in control and listen to rational thinking. But because most people are not open to the imagination, it doesn't seem like it's weighted enough.
You know, like it doesn't, if you put it on a scale, it wouldn't have value. You put it on a scale, it wouldn't pull the scale down into balance. And I think that's one reason why I'm really interested in this idea of rationality. You become too rational. And I don't know, you've probably been thinking about this, haven't you, Candace?
Yeah, I have. It's interesting.
And have you come to any, like, any kind of conclusions or any better understanding?
Oh, and my dog. I think we're coming to. Yeah, I think so. Like all growing up, Chad would never tell us when things were wrong. And I talked to him the other day, and I was telling him about this, what I've kind of been learning, and I'm like, I wonder if that's because he was like, I feel like I've been in a manic phase like my whole life. Like, you know, now that he's gotten on this lithium, he's like, oh my gosh, like, is this how it feels to feel normal, you know? So I just think maybe he's been dominated by that left brain. And for some reason, it just felt rational to not tell anything, you know, like, don't tell your parents when something's wrong, you know? So he had all these things that we could have and should have helped him with when he was younger, but he just hid it from us, you know? So, and I think because he thought that was the rational, reasonable thing to do, you know?
I think I have something, but I don't want to stop you if you have more.
No, I'm done.
So, are people familiar with this Pantocrator icon and Pantocrator icon? Can't say it. How do you say it? People know what I mean? Let me
send it. Yeah, send it, honey.
I don't know.
If I can. Oh, yes. The Christ is holding the word in his left hand, but it looks like we're facing him, so it looks right to us. And he's gesturing in a typical Roman gesture with his right hand. I was a part of that conversation you were having, so tell me what you're thinking, Kevin.
Yeah, I can take it further and connect it to what you were saying.
Okay.
Okay, well, my thought started with what you said, Jill, about how you can prove anything with facts, but it's not a living truth that you prove. You're proving something that's hollow and empty and dead and false, right? Like, or it can be, right? So
yeah, it can be.
So it's like it's the difference between a technicality and following the spirit of the law. You know what I mean? It's like if the spirit of the law isn't in the enacting of justice, then it's a dead letter. It's dead, you know. And I found this great verse. Do you guys follow me so far? Like the reason, if the reason why something exists is not how it's being used, it's dead. So
yes,
the living spirit in it that it was created with. So okay, I'll send you this one. This is blowing my mind that it's so in with Jesus' right hand, he's addressing. So like that what's written in the book, it can't be changed in a way, right? It's like that's written and it's history. It's, you know,
black and white. Yeah.
It's written in stone. Okay. And but his right hand is attached to him, to his heart, right? That you're, you know, he himself, his spirit is in what's happening when he addresses you, and you know, and maybe you take something in the law of Moses out of context, and you
You know,
say,
I get
yeah,
this. I get it. I see what you're saying. Because if you think of tradition, and just add this to your what you're going to say next, okay? But if you think of tradition as what is handed to you, then you can clearly see this as the black and white word written in and held is handed to you in kind of completeness, and yet there's an authority of the right hand of God himself, the word himself, the logos himself.
yeah,
Is
it's
that
never,
what you're
yeah,
aiming at?
yeah,
Yeah.
like creation is never complete in this life, in this world. There's an infinite perfectibility. There's always, you know, a new exception to the rule that hadn't come up, and you have to go back to God to find a way to resolve it. If you try to solve a problem, like Einstein said, if you try to solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it, that's insanity. It's not going to work, right?
Staying on the horizontal plane doesn't work. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't.
So you just sorry, I'm cooking and I'm doing this with the my gravy might burn. Anyway, so staying on the horizontal plane will never keep you, will never answer the ultimate question.
You have to reach up to the overarching truth, right? That's like a rainbow, maybe. So, these two hands, actually, this is the lowest serpent and the highest serpent that has wings and fire. The seraphim is the highest angel. You follow? So the left hand, in his left hand, he's calling the lowest serpent calls attention to death. It has a place, right? You can see its place. But so they actually have to work together. You have to call attention to that which will kill you if you don't integrate it properly, if you don't find to put it in its proper place. And you also have to call attention to the highest good. So that's sort of what's happening with the trumpets in Jericho, which is blowing my mind how that's a prefiguration of Christ, that, you know, there's this calling attention to the Ark of the Covenant, and then 7 times 7 on the seventh day they what was it, there's a 49 there, they trumpeted 7 times, and then they entered the city. So it's like, it's very much an image of Christ, if I'm not explaining it well, but it's actually crazy how that's one of the clearest examples of prophesizing Christ in the Old Testament. But I'll leave that one. So this is heaven and earth, right? His right hand is heaven, and the left hand is earth. It's a dead letter. It's totally worthless without the right hand, without the living spirit in it. It's a whitewashed tomb. And that's also the tree of knowledge compared to the tree of life, right? It's the book of knowledge in his left hand, and the tree of life is Christ, that the right hand is attached to. So you know, he fills up the law, like with experiential knowledge. Like, we can't properly know the law of Moses without experiencing what it was intended for through him. He fills it up. He fills the room with furniture that we can sit on now. So connecting to, so I was thinking that that's sort of like when you just highlight arbitrary facts and say that this proves something, that that's like a dead letter. It's empty and meaningless, and that's sort of what the Antichrist does, is he says, like, look at this thing that's not really connected to the truth, but he's trying to frame it. It's framing, right? He's trying to frame something that's made of death. It doesn't have the living spirit of God in it, and say, like, this is the highest truth, like, worship this. But he's like, that's when they're in wrong relationship, and it's like, it's the dead letter, it's the empty meaning of the facts framed as something that we should worship, something higher, but it's actually hollow and deceiving.
I'm going to derail you, but when I was young, I don't know how I got through school, but when I looked at printed words, a paragraph, it was fine when they were big, but once they got small, the words between, the spaces between the words, I followed them like rivers. So I've always had kind of a question about why am I like this? And I do think, just for me, it probably means nothing to anyone else, but for me, I can see that oral tradition, not the letter of the law, I think it does give you something that separates so that it can be filled. Maybe that's a good way to look at it. Or in music doesn't, well, some people write it down, right, Candace? But for me, it's a fleeting thing that is transformative, because it's here for a second. And then on that note, maybe sustains for a bit, but then it disappears. And the truth of it, though, is its transformative power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the Mandorla. This is the red rope around Rahab's door. This is it's framing the right thing, is calling attention to the highest. That's what the altar is. When Noah, first thing Noah does when God remembers him is he makes an altar. He's calling attention to the highest. That's what Moses does. That's what Jacob does. I think these are Mandorla moments. I can't find any icons of those moments. Only Christ is ever found in a Mandorla, but they're like prefigurations maybe of Mandorlas, and that's what they're when they trumpet outside the walls of Jericho, calling attention to the Ark of the Covenant. That's the role of music. It's like it's ornamentation, and silence can act that way too. I think there's outside of Jericho, there's a time when they have silence, and it's the same kind of thing. These things need to be set apart, like you said. What that which is set apart is what can receive.
I see Anna's back. Hi, Anna. Are you able to talk?
Not really. I'm in the car.
Are you? Okay. Do you have your children with you?
Not yet. I'm on the way.
Because I want to know how clean I should keep my mouth.
You're good until 4.
All right. Okay. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying listening.
Say that again.
I'm enjoying listening.
Awesome. 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 Well, I know Candace was sharing a little bit about when you're too rational, the dangers of that. And so that kind of got us on to the black and white letter of the law and how it could kill you or distort your thinking, maybe. And yeah, so any direction you want to give us? I'm sensing a no.
I think that's the entire Old Testament is a story of how, you know, the dead letter leads to exile. And that's the whole, it's the story of, see, Candace, that's the story of the tree of knowledge. It's like knowledge in itself is worthless. You need, you know, because you can cherry pick, right? You can take the good and leave the bad, but you have to integrate the good and the bad together. You know, when they're in right relationship, when Adam and Eve are in right relationship, when the question and the answer are, you know, when the question is wrapped around the answer, then the answer is more resilient. It's impervious, you know, it's protected by a layer of death, which keeps it healthy and forms a buffer. You know, it forms a it frames the space, it sets it apart. So the entire Old Testament, you know, the question posed in the garden when they ate from the tree of knowledge is a riddle that is resolved when Christ comes and shows you. He's like, no, not like that. You guys have, you know, you have the laws, but you're not filling them up with the spirit. You're, you know, you're using the law to serve yourself, right? That's what the Pharisees are doing. Hypocrites, right? You're pretending to be good, pretending to serve others while serving yourself. That's why Christ, it's the same hypocrisy that Christ denounced so strongly when he started flipping tables.
Yeah, right. I think that it's a really good topic to consider where I've made a parody of love instead of love. And thank God he corrects us and doesn't just annihilate.
Even the in some traditions, those who were wiped out in the flood don't go into eternal death. They're kept in Hades, and they're given the choice to repent when Christ comes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, why don't you sit with death for a while? sit with the concept of eternal death and see if that's what you want, or if you want completion.
I heard an interesting thing about Plato, that Plato was certainly not he didn't know Christ personally or follow him, but so the story is he was the first one to grab Christ when he descended into Hades and delivered the people in slavery there. So it's a great story. Yeah.
Plato was way before Christ, but his mentor Socrates definitely prefigured Christ, in that, you know, he was the Pharisees of his day accused him of corrupting the youth because they, you know, he was the stone they were rejecting, and they gave him the choice to renounce his faith and his identity or die, and he chose death by poisoning. So, I was trying some breathing exercises. I heard about the hesychastic practices, hesychasm. So I learned a lot from things like holding my breath, and you sort of, if you think about breathing in, concentrating your sort of welcoming or making space for the source of life, and then I would breathe out and sort of realize how thankful, you know, how quickly you miss life when it seems fleeting, when you remember death, you know, and you start, you know, you almost start going into unconsciousness, and it's like, save me from this. I don't want, you know, I don't want to lose connection to the source of life. And you kind of get a new appreciation for how much we depend on what gives us life. I had more insights, but helps you remember. It helps you to not focus on anything else, right? You're just totally focused on on what you need to live.
Something like a baptism. When you're underwater, you're not breathing. That's what I meant.
Yeah. You go into death, and you become really thankful for life. You're like, don't let this be eternal death. You know, temporary death is enough to teach me how much I should, how valuable real life is. Like, I think sometimes about, you know, imagine if you actually died right now, and you know, your consciousness went somewhere, and how and what you'd be willing to give up just to have, you know, one more chance to make a difference, just to have some life back, right? You're watching all of the things sort of fall apart that you were caring for on Earth. You know, you're watching things that you could attend to that are not getting the attention that they need, and you know, you can kind of think about, what did I value? What was I sacrificing those things for when I did have a chance to attend to them? You know, like my son has these guinea pigs, and sometimes I walk in there, and their water bottles are just bone dry, and it's like, if that bottle was bone dry for an hour, that's 13 hours to them. you know, and what was I doing? What was he doing that was more important than, you know, if only he could hear them crying for him for help, you know, like, please, we're suffering, we're dying here, like, please, I hope you'll come back. Where are you? Where are you? We need you. And, you know, he's just like off in unconsciousness, you know, being pulled away by some deceiving false idol. You know what I mean? And if we could see the suffering that's resulting from us not attending to things that, you know, we were born to attend to, you know, if we could see that more clearly by, you know, making space, clearing away distractions, then I think we'd be different, and that's how we become different. And I'm starting to understand the Sabbath and the rest and music, because good music calls attention to the highest pattern, right? Like that's the proper place of music, is when it's sort of repeating, repeatedly calling your attention back to the central image. You know, like the seraphim says, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of earth," or whatever, Lord of heaven. Like repetition to emphasize the importance of it, right?
I also thought what did you call them? Were they guinea pigs?
Yeah.
That was a really good analogy, isn't it? Because it's on a different scale, different level, and you're not as aware of their life as your own. And then I was thinking, which I'm kind of interested in, I thirst, when Jesus says that from the cross. It's got to mean more. I wonder if he's thirsting for us to come
Yeah.
into life, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
I think
a weird idea, but it seemed pertinent. Well, I'm going to have to go and actually deal with my gravy. So I love you guys. I'm going to take off. See you later. Bye-bye.
so.
Bye.